Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And now we're starting with the anime. The main character's name is Isagi, and right now he's participating in a school qualifying tournament for the right to enter the playoffs and compete for the National Cup. Isagi's team is losing, and their only chance to stay in the game is to tie the score. Isagi breaks away towards the goal, and the coach starts yelling at him to pass the ball to a teammate because soccer is a team sport, and Isagi agrees. However, his teammate fails to score, which leads to a counter-attack that the opponents take advantage of, eliminating Isagi's team from the tournament. After the match, he starts thinking about what would have happened if he had taken the shot himself. If Isagi hadn't passed the ball and had scored a goal, everything would be completely different now. Upon returning home, his mother hands him a letter from the Japan Football Association inviting him to a player development program. Arriving at the designated location, he meets Kira, the very player who eliminated his team yesterday. When they enter the building, they see hundreds of other soccer players, all of them forwards. Then the organizer of this whole event comes out to them. His name is Igo, and he has gathered 300 of the best high school forwards in this room, after which he begins to explain why. The fact is that the Japanese national team has never been famous on the international stage. They play well as a team, but to win, they lack a striker who will think not about how the team plays, but about how to score goals. For this purpose, a special prison called BLUELOCK was created. In it, the players will live and train together, and the best of them will become the greatest striker in the world. Kira doesn't like his presentation because they are being offered to abandon their teammates for a fleeting dream. However, Igo's speech deeply resonates with Isagi, and he considers this his only chance to become the best in the world. Agreeing with him, he runs through the door, followed by everyone else. Isagi, Kira, and 10 other forwards end up in the same room. Each of them is given a uniform with a number on the sleeve. As Igo later explained, he created a subjective ranking based on the abilities of each player. The ranking will change as a result of training and matches, and in 6 months, the top 5 will compete for the right to play as a forward in Japan's youth team. However, anyone who is eliminated from BLUELOCK will permanently lose the right to play for the Japanese national team. Igo also announces that he will now conduct a small test where the players will play tag with a ball. The boys will have 138 seconds, and whoever is it when the time runs out will be expelled from BLUELOCK. Initially, the weakest player among them is designated as it, and he immediately starts kicking the ball, hoping to hit someone. However, he is unsuccessful, so he decides to choose the easiest target, a sleeping boy. But the boy suddenly jumps up and kicks him in the face. Another player starts scolding him for this, but while he's doing so, he gets hit by the ball himself, meaning he's now it. This act angers him, and he kicks the ball with all his might, hitting Isagi directly. With less than a minute left on the timer, Isagi urgently needs to hit someone. At this moment, the weakest player sprains his ankle, presenting Isagi with a perfect opportunity to hit him with the ball. However, he decides not to do it because to become the strongest, one must overcome those who are stronger than oneself. So, he turns around. Bachira, impressed by his actions, takes the ball from him and runs to eliminate the strongest player, who turns out to be Kira. However, he misses, and there's barely any time left on the timer. But at the last moment, being it himself, Bachira passes the ball to Isagi, who eliminates Kira. Igo appears before them, stating that they are all governed by results, which is why Kira is eliminated. Kira is a strong player, but when he was hit by the ball, he had a whole second to try and hit someone in the air. Instead, he chose to simply fall, and there's no place for such players in BLUELOCK. Thus, 11 forwards remain in this room, forming Team Z. During training, Isagi realizes that they all have different skills. Some are very resilient, others have a high jump, but Isagi has nothing to boast about. Unlike the others, he doesn't know his strengths. Unable to sleep at night, he goes to the field to practice. There, he meets Bachira and asks him about that pass during the tag game. How did he know he needed to pass, and why did he decide that Isagi would eliminate Kira? After all, he could have easily not touched the ball, and then Bachira himself would have been eliminated. Bachira explains that there's a monster inside him that tells him when to strike and when to dribble. But at that moment, Bachira suggested he pass the ball because he noticed that Isagi also had a monster inside him. That's why he took the initiative and eliminated Kira. After the test, the players' rankings were updated and Isagi moved up from 299th place to 274th. However, there were 25 players in BLUELOCK, meaning he was still second to last in the ranking, with only Garashi below him. Igo also explains that Team Z is the weakest team, which is why they live accordingly. The prison is divided into 5 zones, and the higher the team's ranking, the more advantages they have in life. This is done for additional motivation. Everything will be decided through matches. There are 5 teams in their building. With a total of 55 players, each team will play against each other, and based on the results, the top 2 teams will advance, while the remaining 3 will be eliminated. In case of a tie in points, the teams with fewer fouls will advance. Additionally, the top scorers from the 3 losing teams will also be able to advance. Their first opponents will be Team X. The problem is that they are all forwards, so they argue about their positions. Through a game of rock, paper, scissors, Isagi is chosen as the forward for the first match, meaning the game should be built around him. However, when the match starts, all the players start fighting for the ball, completely forgetting about positions and team play. Out of this chaos, Baru emerges, taking the ball from everyone and scoring a goal on his own. Thanks to him, Team X, who had no idea what to do, starts building their game around Baru, and thus they score 5 goals. Isagi realizes that to build soccer from scratch, they need to unite around one player. In other words, the forward transforms 0 into 1, and then his team multiplies that number by 10 or even 100. Bachira decides to help him in this, saying that the 2 of them can handle everyone. Thanks to Bachira's accurate pass, Isagi gets into a scoring position, but Baru starts interfering because he wants to be the sole king on this field. Isagi has 3 options: shoot himself, pass to the open Raichi, or pass to the closed Kunigami. Isagi intends to shoot, but at the last moment, without understanding why, he passes to Kunigami, who scores a goal with a powerful shot from a distance. Because Isagi passed instead of shooting himself, he was considered weak and lacking talent. Despite the goal, they lost, and the situation in the standings wasn't promising. Since there were very few teams, if they lost one more game, they would definitely be eliminated. Therefore, they needed to win the remaining matches, and only in one of them could they afford a draw. The next day, Kuon started asking the players about their strongest qualities so that he could utilize everyone's strengths during matches. The only ones who couldn't answer were Isagi, because he didn't know his own strength, and Shigiri, as he was hiding his strongest side. Kwon suggested changing positions clockwise every few minutes so that everyone could use their strengths to achieve the goal, while other players would help them. However, with this plan, the goal remained a weak zone, so Akuhito agreed not to change his position and stay in goal until the end. Chijiri also refused to switch, opting to stay in defense. After training, Isagi went to the cafeteria where Kunigami approached him. He expressed his gratitude for the goal-scoring pass. In response, Isagi asked why he played soccer. It turns out that Kunigami wants to become a soccer superhero. As a child, he watched soccer players who gave their all on the field, and they inspired Kunigami. Isagi found this goal to be very good, and Kunigami decided to share his stake with him. For each goal scored, players earn points that can be exchanged for something, and he decided to share the meat because Kunigami is a man of honor, and since he scored the goal thanks to Isagi, he should share the winnings with him. He also asked why Isagi passed to him, as Raichi was in a more advantageous position earlier. Isagi replied that at that moment he felt the goal and it was coming from Kunigami, so he didn't shoot himself but passed the ball. Based on this, Kunigami concludes that Isagi can somehow sense goals, which is probably the strongest ability. Their next opponents would be Team Y. They also lost their previous match, so they would fight to the death. Their best player is Hibiki, so they need to keep a close eye on him. Team Z started the match according to plan, with Bashira as the first forward, utilizing his dribbling skills. However, their opponents had studied his game and didn't allow him to fully unleash his potential. Team Y's entire game was built on defense. All they did was prevent the players from expressing themselves, but it wasn't that simple. Their style of play made Team Z relax, which Iki took advantage of, giving an accurate pass to Ibiki, who opened the scoring in the match. And after the goal, they simply started stalling, not going on the attack at all. Thus, the second half began, and only after such a long time, Team Z was able to regain possession of the ball. During this period, the forward was Gagamaru, whose strength was breaking through defenders with his pressure. At some point, Team Z had a corner kick, but Isagi sensed something, so instead of attacking, he ran back to defend. Thanks to this, he was able to interrupt the counter-attack and then deliver the ball to Gagamaru, who scored a goal. Isagi realized that the main player of Team Y was not Hibiki at all. It was Iki, an inconspicuous guy who controlled his team's actions on the field. The whole game was built the way he wanted, so if you shut him down, the opponent's game would simply fall apart. But all Team Y did was stall again with endless passes. This forced Team Z to go on the attack, after which, in the last minute of the match, they used their set play, an attack with the whole team. They reached the goal and were about to score, but Isagi sensed their goal and was able to interrupt it. Taking the ball, he started a counter-attack, and after running the entire field again, he received a pass from Bachira, who, with the help of his monster, understood where Isagi was, who, using his power, scored the decisive goal. With his winning goal, he eliminated Team Y from BLUELOCK, and the fact that 11 players had their dreams shattered because of him gave him incredible pleasure. Isagi and Gagamaru, who scored goals, bought meat for their team, thus making it more cohesive. At night, Isagi couldn't sleep again and went to watch the replay of the match, where he met Chigiri. He tells him that he didn't come to BLUELOCK to become the strongest. 6 months ago, he tore his cruciate ligaments. After some time he recovered, but if he tears them again, he will say goodbye to soccer forever. Because of this, he developed a fear of getting injured, so he doesn't play at full strength, and he came here to see a forward because of whom he could give up his dream of becoming a soccer player, and after seeing Isagi's goal, he became one step closer to giving up everything. After that, at training, Yaga announces that the last match has made changes in the players' ranking, and Isagi has become the best in their team. He also says that their next match will be in 24 hours, so the players went to recover. However, Isagi decided to stay on the field to train his endurance and utilize his intuition throughout the entire match. The rest of the team followed him onto the field. The fact is that Isagi is the best player on the team, so everyone else starts competing with him and trying to surpass him, becoming better. The next match will be against Team W, and their situation is similar. If they lose, they're out. They know that their leading players are the Waniwa brothers. The entire game is built around them as they understand each other perfectly. Team W, by the way, defeated Team X, to whom Team Z lost 5-1, which means they are nominally stronger. Kwon decided to improve the tactics of changing forwards. Now the entire attacking line of 3 players will change, and they will be given 30 minutes to score goals. The match started, and the Waniwa brothers began to dribble past the entire team. But Isagi managed to take the ball away and start his team's attack, which led to Kwon's goal. In the same way, he scored the second and third goals. The second half began, and Kwon made a mistake, because of which they conceded the first goal. Then he made another mistake, and the Waniwa brothers were able to score another goal. After that, Kwon began to tearfully apologize, saying that he would definitely make amends. It was time to change the attackers. Now Isagi, Bachira, and Kunigami were on the attack, but they couldn't do anything because the opponents guessed their every move, as if they knew in advance what to expect from them. And at this pace, the Waniwa brothers tied the score. Isagi understood what was happening. It turns out that Kwon betrayed the team and told Team W the strengths of each player. That's why they read the attackers' actions so easily and didn't give them any freedom. And after that, Kwon switched to the other half of the field. So now the game will not be 11 versus 11, but 12 versus 10. He did this for a reason. Seeing how hard they were fighting for victory, Kwon thought they had no chance against a strong team. As I said before, the 3 worst teams are eliminated. However, the top scorers from these teams remain in BLUELOCK. Therefore, Kwon made a deal with the Waniwa brothers. They would allow him to score 3 goals and become the top scorer on their team. In return, he would ensure their victory in the match. Playing with one less player was difficult. Therefore, Team W scored another goal, increasing the score in their favor. It also turns out that Chigiri played on the same team as the Waniwa brothers. There, they were the main players. But Chigiri quickly became the main star and took all the attention. However, the injury broke him mentally, and the Waniwa brothers pressured Chigiri throughout the game, getting under his skin. Winning the match was unrealistic. All Team Z was fighting for was a draw. But for that, they needed to score, and it was extremely difficult to do so. Isagi started running frantically with the ball, trying to score a goal alone. He was stopped every time. However, his will to win completely changed Chigiri. If he gets injured, his dream is over, but if they lose this match, soccer will be over just the same. So, what's there to be afraid of? Chigiri overcame his fear of injury and used his strongest side, incredible speed, which Team W wasn't prepared for. Isagi sensed a goal coming from Chigiri, so he passed to him. And Chigiri, outrunning the defenders like they were standing still, scored a goal, bringing his team a draw. However, the situation was still dire. Team Z absolutely had to win the last match, and they had to play against Team V, who had won all their matches, crushing their opponents. Kwon wanted to help them too, offering them the same scheme as Team W. However, their team's strength allowed them to refuse such dubious offers. They said they could beat any team anyway, so they simply walked away from him. Isagi stopped them. He assured them that they would crush them in the next game. After analyzing their matches, they realized that the most dangerous players were Zante, Tsureo, and Nagi, who had scored 18 goals between the 3 of them. But the problem was that they were playing with one less player. And since it was almost impossible to beat them with a full squad, it was even harder to do so with 10 players. Therefore, Isagi went to the field to train with Baru. He found his formula for goals and actively uses it, reinforcing it with intensive training. This is exactly what Isagi lacks. He can score when he gets a feeling, but he can't do it regularly. So he's actively looking for the last piece of the puzzle to finally understand how to become the best scorer. Before the match, Team Z studied Team V's game. Thanks to this, they managed to interrupt their first attack and start their own. It didn't end in a goal. However, Ryo liked their combination, so he decided to repeat it. After that, Nagi scored a goal. Nagi is a lazy genius. Playing soccer doesn't bring him any pleasure. But he plays for Ryo, a rich boy who was inspired by Nagi's genius and does everything for their victory. Nagi then scores another goal, bringing the score to 2-0. Then Team Z decided to use Chigiri's speed, but Zantetsu turned out to be just as fast. As a result, he took the ball away and scored another goal. The situation for Team Z is dire, and this didn't suit Bachira, because if they lost, he wouldn't be able to play with Isagi anymore. And he didn't like those prospects. So he decided to take matters into his own hands and single-handedly pass the entire Team V. With this, they scored their first goal. This gave Team Z additional motivation, and this time Kunigami showed himself. With his powerful shot, he pierced the opponent's goalkeeper. The second half began, and Team Z no longer allowed them to score so easily, so they had to find new ways to break through the defense. Now it was Chigiri's turn to beat his opponent. However, at a short distance, Zantetsu was faster. But he realized that at a long distance he wasn't his equal, and by outrunning him he was able to score the third goal, thus tying the match. Mathematically, a draw was perfectly fine for Team V. However, they had never lost before. And Ryo didn't want to break their winning streak, and using Nagi, they scored another goal. He, by the way, felt an interest in soccer for the first time. The game with Team Z was able to awaken the soccer player in him. To defeat them, Isagi began to completely shut down their main weapon, Nagi. After that, they started their series of attacks, where Isagi himself was able to distinguish himself. But immediately after that, Ryo passes to Nagi, who was supposed to put an end to this match. But at the very last moment, Kwon knocks him down, saving his team. Initially, he did not want to interfere, but still, he decided to help, asking the guys to do everything for the victory. With joint efforts, Team Z was able to fight off the free kick from Team V, and now they started their last attack, during which Nagi tried to interfere with them. But at this moment, Isagi understands his other strong point, namely a volley kick, thanks to which he scores the winning goal. As a result, Teams V and Z came out on top, and the three best scorers of the losing teams went further. Then, Ego announces a new stage. But before that, they must undergo the hardest 10-day training. After these days, everyone was called to the basement of the building, where it was announced that in fact, there are no 5 buildings at all. Ego hammered into their heads that they were the worst within these walls, so that they give their all to move on to the next stage. The essence of the second qualifying round is to transform your goal formula from 1 to 100, and the winners of this selection will be able to train with the best football players on the planet. However, this time everyone will play for themselves. Now those who pass the stage thanks to the goals of others will be eliminated first. Having passed to the next stage, Isagi faces a new challenge. He is given 90 minutes to score 100 goals against a goalkeeper, a hologram. During this test, Isagi honed his volley kick skill. He learned to adapt to passes of varying difficulty, and he was able to pass the test as one of the first. Bachira followed him, and it turns out that now they need to assemble a team of 3 people in order to then play with another team up to 5 goals scored. The winner of the confrontation has the right to take the player who lost to them, and the remaining 2 will have to fight with the same teams of 2 people, and the winners also take one of them. When only one player remains in the team, he is eliminated, and the main task is to assemble a team of 5 players. Isagi and Bachira immediately formed a team. And now they needed a 3rd player. They decided to wait for someone from the Kunigami and Chijiri pair. But at this moment, Nagi approaches them, who offers Isagi to join him and Ryo. But since he is already on a team with Bachira, Isagi refuses. And then Nagi himself will rush to their team, because he wants to understand what Isagi's genius is. And for this, he leaves Ryo, telling him that they would definitely meet in the next stage. Entering the 3rd trial, they saw the 3 best players, and they faced a choice. Wait for a weaker team and guarantee a win, or take a risk, but get a strong player. Understandably, Isagi chooses the second option, and their opponents will be such Mitsu, Jubei, and Rin, the best player of BLUELOCK at the moment. Isagi's team counted on teamwork and even managed to get ahead, but Rin and the others were so individually strong that they left them no chance. No matter how hard they tried, one-on-one, they were simply weaker, and therefore they naturally lose. But the most important thing is that they decided to take Bachira, who, before leaving, told Isagi that he would have to try hard to get him back. Now Isagi and Nagi are one step away from elimination. They have to play with the same team of losers. But there is no point in taking a weak team as an opponent, because then they will just lose in the 3-on-3 match and be eliminated again, so they have to find a strong team. Putting their stay here at stake, the choice falls on Baru and Naruhaya. Former player of Team Z, Isagi's goal is to get Baru, but the problem is that, individually, Baru and Nagi are about the same level. Therefore, the outcome of the match will be decided by Isagi and Naruhaya. The problem is that Isagi doesn't know how to act one-on-one at all. He scored all his goals with volley shots, and he didn't have to beat anyone. Thanks to Baru's incredible power, his team was able to get ahead, and Isagi had to adapt. He realized that Naruhaya's main feature is his actions without the ball. He perfectly runs behind the opponent, using his blind zone. Isagi decided to adopt this trick. In a short time, he understood how Naruhaya's strength works, after which he began to use it just like him. Adding his orientation and volley shot to this, Isagi became much stronger. Thanks to this, they were able to defeat Baru's team, whom they took into their team. Meanwhile, Kunigami and Chigiri were offended by Isagi for not waiting for them and taking Nagi into the team. Ryo felt even stronger emotions, wanting to defeat Nagi's team so that he would crawl back to him on his knees. Combining their discontent, the guys form a team, and it turns out that Isagi's team wants to defeat Ryo's team to get a strong player, while Ryo's team wants to defeat Isagi's team just to teach them a lesson. These teams clashed in a 3-on-3 match, but Isagi and Nagi had a problem, namely Baru's selfishness, who wanted to score on his own, not giving anyone a pass, even if it meant they would lose. Of course, Kunigami and the others prepared for the match, so they didn't let Baru act freely. And with the help of teamwork, they were able to pull ahead. Isagi tried his best to get through to Baru, asking him to pass because they could lose because of him. But Baru wasn't even going to listen to him. And then Isagi realized that there was no point in forcing Baru to play his soccer. Instead, he decided to use him as a pawn and play only with Nagi. Applying his new strength with off-the-ball play in battle, Isagi was able to turn the tide of the match, after which he told Baru that all that was required of him was simply not to get in the way. Isagi's play absorbed the soccer of everyone on the field. He read the actions of each player and decided for himself how the match would go. At the moment, Isagi was so strong that even Baru, who had played only for himself all his life, passed to him without realizing it. The score was tied and the last goal decided everything. At some point, the ball ended up with Baru, who had already admitted that Isagi was the king on the field in this match. And he was about to pass to him, but if he did that, he would betray his ideals. So at the last moment, he decides that if he can't be the hero on the field, he will do everything to become the best villain. And so, becoming even better, he begins to single-handedly pass the entire opposing team and eventually scores the winning goal. Initially, they wanted to take Ryo into their team because he could connect them on the field. But according to Isagi, they don't need such a player. The point of the second selection is to ignite a spark between the players, and for this they need an individually bright player, which is Chigiri, whom they took into their team. Having formed a team of 4, Isagi finds Rin and challenges him again. Unlike the previous match with Rin, Isagi became even stronger, and his team, namely Chigiri, opened the scoring in the match. However, Rin was incredibly strong and his team also kept up in goals. Initially, Isagi thought that Rin, like him, was reading the field. But after another conceded goal, he realized that in fact Rin wasn't reading the field but controlling it. He plays the way he wants, making puppets out of his teammates. That's why Isagi couldn't read him and outplay him. However, he noticed that Rin had a hard time with Isagi's team's unusual actions. They managed to score if one of them shows their best soccer, which is simply impossible to predict. The whole match was a continuous back and forth, meaning anyone could win. The score was 4-4 and the outcome of the match was decided by the last goal. At this moment, Bachira, who until then couldn't reach the level of Isagi and Rin's game because they were simply on their own wavelength, joined the game. Previously, Bachira played with his monster because he was afraid to be alone. But he realized that playing soccer alone brought him no less pleasure. So he decided to abandon playing with the monster, once and for all. Now he would be on his own, a true egoist. And so, he single-handedly passed the entire Isagi team and was about to score. But at the very last moment, Isagi blocked the shot. However, no matter how hard he tried, the ball ended up with Rin, who scored the winning goal. This means he defeated Isagi's team for the second time. Now they have to choose a player to take. And if before Rin didn't participate in any voting because he didn't care who he played with, this time he decided to determine for himself who would become his teammate. For the first time since being here, Rin was afraid of losing. and this fear appeared in him precisely because of Isagi, so he took him into his team. Now these 5 have moved on to the 3rd stage, where Ego began to explain why Rin emerged victorious from the confrontation between Isagi and Rin. It's all about banal luck. When Isagi blocked the shot, the ball could have gone to anyone, but it landed right at Rin's feet. However, it's not that simple. Luck smiled on Rin because he put in all the effort. If he hadn't been in the right place, the winner would have been someone else. Roughly speaking, luck smiled on the strongest, and the strongest right now is Rin. True, he himself believes that he lost to Isagi in that match, and therefore he will do everything to prevent this from happening again. As mentioned earlier, those who pass to the 3rd stage will fight against the 5 best players. This match will allow them to touch world-class soccer. Despite the strength of the players, the Blue Lock team was able to open the scoring in the match, but they were only able to do this because the Stars underestimated them. And realizing that they were not playing against ordinary children, they began to act much more seriously, and therefore they left them no chance. Although the guys lost, this defeat made them understand how much more they need to work to get closer to their level of play. Meanwhile, at the Football Federation meeting, the question of the feasibility of the Blue Lock project is raised. The bosses believe that Ego is spending an unjustifiably large amount of money, so they decided to close the project. This forced Ego to take extreme measures and offer the bosses a bet. The point is that those who have passed to the 3rd stage will have to play against the Japanese youth national team, and if Blue Lock loses to them, the project will be closed. But if they can win, they will take their place in the national team, and the most interesting thing is that Saya, Rin's older brother, will be playing in the youth national team. 35 players passed to the 3rd stage, but Kunigami was not among them. This is because in the 2-on-2 match, he and Reo lost to Shido's team, and we will find out how the match between Blue Lock and the Japanese youth national team will end in the 2nd season, the video about which will be released sometime tomorrow. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.